Most people have never witnessed a Canadian truck stop in the heart of winter. If they did, one thing would immediately stand out. Rows upon rows of trucks sitting in the darkness, engines humming, no drivers in sight, no freight being loaded, no activity at all. Just hundreds of trucks idling while the temperature outside plunges to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And inside nearly every one of those trucks, a driver is asleep. Not wrapped in layers of heavy winter clothing, not buried inside an extreme weather sleeping bag, not lying awake waiting for sunrise. Just resting comfortably under an ordinary blanket in a space that feels more like a warm bedroom than a truck cab. To most people, that sounds almost unbelievable. At minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, exposed skin can freeze within minutes. Bare metal becomes painful and even dangerous to touch. The air itself feels brutally heavy and unforgiving. Yet this is something Canadian truckers experience every winter, night after night. So how do they stay warm in conditions that cold? To understand how Canadian truckers manage to sleep comfortably through these extreme winter nights, you first have to understand what minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit really means. Because for most people, it's a level of cold they've never experienced. At temperatures like that, regular winter clothing simply isn't enough. Exposed skin doesn't just feel cold, it can begin freezing within minutes. Frostbite becomes a real threat to unprotected fingers, cheeks, ears, and any other exposed areas. Even simple things become dangerous. Touching a metal surface with bare skin can feel like the opposite of touching a hot stove. The cold transfers instantly and painfully. Breathing changes too. Taking a deep breath through your mouth pulls air so cold into your lungs that every inhale can feel sharp and uncomfortable. And it's not only people that struggle in these conditions. Machines suffer as well. Diesel fuel starts to thicken. Engine oil becomes less effective at flowing through critical components. Rubber seals shrink in the cold. Batteries lose power faster than normal. Plastic parts become rigid and fragile. At minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, systems that normally operate without a problem begin fighting against the environment around them. This is the reality outside the truck, a world so cold that it challenges both humans and machines alike, which makes what happens inside a Canadian sleeper cab all the more impressive. The most important piece of equipment inside a Canadian sleeper cab isn't the engine. It isn't the insulation, the heavy blankets, the thick curtains, or even an Arctic-rated sleeping bag. It's a small device that many people have never heard of, the bunk heater. Unlike the truck's standard heating system, which often depends on the engine running, a bunk heater operates completely on its own. It burns a carefully controlled amount of diesel fuel and converts that energy directly into heat, delivering warm air into the sleeper compartment through its own vent system. What's surprising is how little fuel it actually uses. A typical bunk heater consumes about half a liter of diesel per hour. Over the course of a 10-hour night, that's only around 5 liters in total. For a truck carrying hundreds of liters of fuel, the difference is barely noticeable. Inside the cab, however, the difference is dramatic. Most drivers simply set the heater to a comfortable temperature, creating an environment warm enough to sleep in ordinary clothing or under a normal blanket, even when the outside temperature plunges to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Think about that for a moment. A temperature difference of more than 120 degrees is being maintained by a device no larger than a small suitcase. But producing heat is only part of the equation. For warmth to matter, it has to stay inside the sleeper, and that's where the truck itself plays a crucial role. A bunk heater can generate plenty of heat, but without proper insulation, much of that warmth would quickly escape into the freezing air outside. Modern sleeper cabs are specifically designed to prevent that from happening. From the outside, a sleeper cab may look like nothing more than a metal box attached to the back of a truck. In reality, it's built far differently. The walls are constructed in multiple layers: an outer shell, an insulating core, and an interior lining. It's the same principle used in the construction of a well-insulated home, adapted into a compact space built to endure some of the harshest winter conditions in North America. The insulation doesn't stop at the walls. The floor is insulated. The roof is insulated. Even the windows are designed to minimize heat loss and improve thermal efficiency during extreme cold. Truck manufacturers that sell vehicles across Canada and the northern United States design these systems with one goal in mind: surviving winter conditions that can be brutally unforgiving. Because in places where temperatures can drop to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, staying warm isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. A sleeper cab that can't retain heat in temperatures of minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit is a sleeper cab that simply won't succeed in northern Canada. But there's one feature inside the truck that often surprises people when they learn about it: a curtain. It sounds almost too simple to matter, yet its impact is remarkable. By pulling the curtain closed, the driver separates the sleeping compartment from the rest of the cab. Instead of heating the entire interior, the bunk heater only needs to warm the smaller sleeping space. That may seem like a minor change, but it makes a huge difference. A smaller area heats up more quickly, stays warm more efficiently, and requires less fuel to maintain a comfortable temperature throughout the night. It's one of those practical tricks that experienced truckers discover early in their careers and continue using for years. When all of these elements work together, the insulated walls, the thermally efficient windows, the privacy curtain, and the bunk heater, the sleeper cab becomes something more than just a place to sleep. It becomes a carefully engineered shelter. Outside, the cold is relentless and potentially dangerous. Inside, the environment remains warm, stable, and controlled. The contrast is extraordinary. Just a few inches beyond the walls, temperatures can be cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. Yet inside the sleeper, conditions remain comfortable enough for a driver to rest normally through the night. In many ways, the cab functions like a self-contained capsule, protecting its occupant from one of the harshest environments on Earth. And once the door closes and the heater is running, something happens that most people never expect. Once the curtain is drawn and the bunk heater is doing its job, the atmosphere changes completely. The truck stop outside, the snow-covered landscape, the brutal -50-degree temperatures, suddenly they feel distant. They're still there, just beyond the walls, but no longer part of the driver's immediate world. Inside the sleeper, life becomes simpler and more focused. And for many truckers, that's exactly what makes it so comfortable. A modern sleeper cab isn't merely a place to sleep. In many ways, it's a compact home on wheels. Small and narrow, yes, but equipped with everything needed to relax after a long day on the road. On a typical winter evening, drivers often spend an hour or two unwinding before bed. They might watch videos on a phone or a small screen mounted inside the cab. Some prepare a meal on a portable stove. Others read, listen to music, or call family and friends back home. They're carrying out ordinary evening routines in an extraordinary environment. Just beyond the cab walls, the temperature is cold enough to challenge both people and machines. Yet inside, daily life continues almost normally, and when it's finally time to sleep, another surprising thing happens. Many drivers sleep exceptionally well. The bunk heater provides a steady flow of warmth in the background. If the truck's engine is left idling, it creates a deep, consistent hum that many drivers describe as strangely comforting. Over time, that constant vibration and low rumble become familiar, almost like white noise. Instead of being a disturbance, it becomes part of the environment, helping turn a truck parked in the middle of a frozen Canadian winter into a place where a driver can genuinely rest. It's a lot like a white noise machine, steady and predictable, masking other sounds without becoming a distraction itself. There are no household chores demanding attention, no unexpected interruptions. The space is familiar, quiet, and entirely personal. Drivers who spend a large portion of the year living on the road often say something that surprises most people. They sleep better in their truck than they do at home. At first, that sounds hard to believe, but it makes more sense when you understand what the sleeper cab becomes over time. It's no longer just a place to spend the night between driving shifts. It becomes a private space that's completely their own. A familiar environment where everything is exactly where they expect it to be. And on most winter nights, the system works flawlessly. The bunk heater keeps running, the sleeper stays warm, the driver gets a full night's rest, and by morning, the routine continues as usual. But experienced Canadian truckers know better than to assume everything will always go according to plan. Because when temperatures drop to -50 degrees Fahrenheit, even a minor issue can become a serious problem much faster than most people realize. A bunk heater can malfunction. A fuel supply line can develop a problem that interrupts the flow of diesel. An electrical fault can suddenly shut down a system that seemed to be working perfectly moments earlier. These situations aren't common, but they do happen, and in remote parts of northern Canada, assistance may be hours away rather than minutes. That's why seasoned drivers treat preparation as seriously as driving itself. Extra blankets are considered basic equipment. Many also keep an extreme cold sleeping bag stored within easy reach inside the sleeper compartment. Not because they expect something to go wrong, but because if a problem does occur in the middle of a -50-degree night, that's the worst possible time to discover you're missing the gear you need. In conditions that harsh, preparation isn't about convenience, it's about having a backup plan before you ever need one. Cold weather gear is always kept close at hand. Insulated boots, heavy gloves, and a winter jacket designed for truly extreme conditions. not just the kind of cold most people encounter during a typical winter. Experienced drivers also pay close attention to anything that seems unusual. If the sleeper compartment starts losing heat unexpectedly, they don't ignore it. They check the situation right away. A small temperature drop is usually easy to deal with if it's caught early. Waiting and hoping the problem resolves itself is a gamble that veteran drivers rarely make. For them, this level of preparation isn't dramatic or extraordinary. It's routine, just another part of working in an environment where the weather doesn't care about your plans. And then there's another aspect of winter nights in northern Canada that rarely gets mentioned: the silence. Most people picture extreme cold as something fierce and chaotic. Howling winds, blowing snow, and storms rattling every surface around them. But on the coldest nights, the reality is often very different. When temperatures plunge toward -50 degrees Fahrenheit, the world outside can become eerily quiet. People stay indoors whenever possible. Traffic thins out on the highways. Even wildlife becomes less active as the cold reaches its most severe levels. It's as if the entire landscape begins to slow down. The usual sounds of daily life fade away, leaving behind a stillness that's difficult to describe unless you've experienced it yourself. Outside the truck, the frozen darkness stretches for miles. Inside, there's only the soft warmth of the sleeper, the gentle hum of the heater, and the feeling of being sheltered from one of the harshest environments on the continent. In temperatures that extreme, the cold doesn't just change the weather, it changes the entire atmosphere. Everything becomes quieter, everything becomes slower, and for one winter night at a time, that small sleeper cab becomes a warm refuge in a world that seems almost frozen in place. Drivers who spend their winters hauling freight across northern Canada often tell a similar story. They step out of the truck late at night expecting the usual sounds of a busy truck stop or the harsh noise of winter weather, only to find something completely different: silence. Not ordinary silence, but the kind that feels almost unreal. Fresh snow plays a big role in that. It absorbs and dampens sound, acting like a natural blanket spread across the landscape. Noises that would normally travel long distances seem to fade away, swallowed by the snow-covered world around them. Some drivers describe the experience as peaceful. Others say it's slightly unsettling. But nearly everyone agrees on one thing: it's unlike anything else. It's a strange feeling to stand in the middle of a vast, frozen landscape and hear almost nothing at all. A world that seems to have pressed pause, and somewhere within that silence sits a parked truck. Inside, a sleeper cab stays warm and comfortable. The bunk heater quietly does its job, and a driver sleeps soundly through another Arctic night. So now you know what's really happening inside those trucks parked at Canadian truck stops in the middle of winter. The next time you see rows of trucks sitting in the darkness with their engines running, you'll understand there's more going on than meets the eye. If you're a truck driver, what's the coldest temperature you've ever spent the night in? Did you leave the engine running or rely on a bunk heater? And if you've never driven a truck, what's the coldest weather you've personally experienced anywhere in the world? Share your story in the comments. I always enjoy reading about your experiences and hearing perspectives from people in different parts of the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about trucking, winter driving, and life on the road, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, stay safe, and I'll see you down the road.